Hi, everyone. Well, firstly, we apologize. Like we did say
Oh, we don't.
6:30 Pacific time, but what you guys have to remember is the fact that we are possibly an hour late. Not quite. That means I stay up later. So really, I am punishing myself for our mistake. Like it is 3:24 a.m. here, and I'm very tired.
hmm
Griff,
Well, it's 7:25 p.m. here,
that's your
and
bedtime, isn't it?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I was gonna say I'm not very tired. Um,
Oh,
Not to rub it in your face, but
I mean, it tiny bit. Have you
I'm in a
seen
much better
so
spot circadian rhythm wise than you are.
circadian? So Andrew in the chat suggested that my tardiness was because I saw Barbie. Andrew, unfortunately, I have not seen Barbie yet. Griff, have you seen
I
Barbie?
I still haven't seen it. I need to make time. I've had some funky. I only go to movies in the evening. I've had some funky evenings of late, so I haven't been able to make it work.
Two of the women in my life, which makes me sound like a womanizer, actually, on reflection. um, but they saw Barbie and they had some criticisms.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I don't
Yeah,
want to say them because that would
yeah.
spoil the movie.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's the commentary that's been made, like the subtleties, has been subject to some debate. So I'm curious about that.
Discourse.
Yeah.
Jen, it's 10:30. You know what? That's actually true. We haven't thought this through really, have we? Anyway, the show must go on. It's not like people have work tomorrow.
Yeah, it's only the middle of the week.
Hmm. Um before we this is a podcast, the Seattle Overload podcast, the Seattle Seahawks podcast. Please do like the video. The algorithm tells me that 39% of you watching this are not subscribed to the channel, so please do subscribe to the channel. Follow Griff at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Make sure that you check out the podcast and subscribe to it on your podcast apps, even if you don't listen to it there. It does help us with everything. And follow the pod on Twitter at Seattle Overload. Okay, Griff, any other preamble?
Hi Ty. Go Mariners.
That is a nice looking pint. Is that a Guinness? Looks kind of dark. But at first, I was confusing that finger for a bit of head. Did the Mariners win? I saw they were 7-up in the very early.
It's 8-5 right now. Top of the 8th.
Ooh,
Second.
bit of a Heimlich needed. Potentially.
What do you mean? They're
I'm suggesting
they're
that
choking.
they may be choking. Yes,
I get it. That was
because
good.
they were up by 7. Now they're up by 3, and there's one other inning to go. And Munoz had a tricky little outing yesterday.
Tricky little outing.
He did, though. I was disappointed. As Munoz's biggest fan, what on earth were the umps doing?
Yeah. Have you seen Children of Men yet?
No.
Maddie, just make a point. Just watch it this weekend.
Okay, I'll watch it this weekend. For you, anything.
Do it for me.
Yeah, you know what? It's actually my turn because in terms of, relationship negotiations, because do you know what film I watched most recently? You don't,
No,
but I'm going to tell you. It was Julia Roberts and George Clooney in rom-com Ticket to Paradise.
Ticket to Paradise. I don't know that one.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't. All-time bad.
Was it bad?
Abysmal.
You can't. I mean, that's quite the cast for a rom-com. Wait, that came out just now.
Yeah.
This past. That sounds like something that would have came out in like 2007.
that may be part of the issue. Now, George and Julia are looking beautiful still, but
Sure.
I think in terms of their acting careers,
Are they phoning
washed.
it in?
And then there's like this weird subplot. Well, it's kind of the main plot of their kid and some guys that she wants to marry, and I haven't heard of either of those actors, and they're not very good. So
That's too bad.
So, a convoluted way of saying, I think I can probably get Children of Men watched this weekend as here's something I'd like to watch.
Yeah. Well, you got to sell her on it. Like, convince her that she would like it.
It's not too scary. My friend Griff recommended it.
Yeah, it's only scary like in a snobby way. Like the ideas in it are scary and disturbing, but it's not like visually terrifying. It's not even like scary from like a psychological suspense way either. There are suspenseful scenes, absolutely, where you're scared for the characters, but you're not scared by the scene, if that makes sense. Some all-time film sequences too, like incredible stuff.
Sometimes pirate run stunting is scary.
For sure. And that's a great segue because we are about to U-turn back into football.
Right.
Just as the Seahawks run defense has U-turned back to its perhaps 2021 in previous ways.
Okay. Let's do the thingy. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's time for a film episode. Yes, we did have Seahawks game 1 of the preseason, but Griffin and I are degenerate as ever going to look at tape. And yes, tape of postseason, of exhibition football. Seattle was not in the postseason yet, Griff. But is there signs that from the exhibition game, given we didn't get to speak to you after they'd played the preseason, but is there signs from this game that postseason football's in this team's future? What do you reckon to it?
Short answer, yes. Okay, really quick.
Yes. Wow. Straight out of the bat.
You know how sick everyone is that now that there's preseason tape and like we can't help ourselves. It's only yeah.
Griff, I'm sorry to do this, but when you messaged me earlier saying Kevin O'Connell was impressive, man, as though he was some play calling genius after calling like his preseason script of like very basic offense. I did think you'd lost your head.
Did I say Kevin? That is very funny. What is even the guy's name?
No, you didn't.
Oh.
You mean Aiden Patrick O'Connell, and I just took that as Kevin O'Connell, and I thought you'd lost your head, when really I'd lost my head.
Oh, it's Patrick O'Connell. Okay.
No, you didn't say Kevin. I just read in between the lines.
Okay.
I truly thought I'd lost you.
Oh. Well, no, you didn't lose me. I'm
I'd lost myself. Okay, well, I'm glad you're not praising the Minnesota Vikings offensive mind after a preseason play calling script.
No,
because I was like, how was he? How was O'Connell impressive? And you were like, versus the run. I was like, what are you talking about? Why is Kevin O'Connell impressive?
You just now realize I'm talking about the linebacker, the third quarter preseason linebacker.
Yeah,
Patrick O'Connell. That's very funny. That is very funny. That makes that whole conversation, because you said with. I'm like, why is he using that preposition? Like, and like I'm trying to parse it. Like, what do you mean with? Like, well, with run defense? Is that what he meant? Do the English
sleep is useful?
Yeah. Like, maybe do the English use with in this context, whereas perhaps American English speakers don't as frequently?
I was also an excuse here. I was watching Made in Chelsea at the time, so
that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, Griff.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, they're making the postseason, but what shoot some other quick takes other than the fact that the Seahawks are making the playoffs after this one game of preseason football.
I mean, so preseason does matter in that you can't do stuff in the game that you aren't practicing, and training camp is the most critical period of installing whatever you're doing on both sides of the ball. So you're establishing breadth, and then the regular season is where you see the depth fill up within that breadth. But like there are markers, schematic markers being laid right now, and that's unavoidable. And while they didn't do everything that they could have within that, you can see the bedrock, the foundation that's been laid for where they can add in more stuff. But like the underlying the sediment, like the foundation is there, the schematic foundation is there, that they're just situationally sound for different formations, and against the tendencies that are combined with that. So like run pass, the balancing personnel, like it's just they're already way ahead of where they were last year. I mean, like what they did, I thought within their base calls was more flexible than at any period last year. Even maybe with the exception of that middle month, but even that middle month where they played really, really well was still fairly vanilla, but it was within the world of good structure. But anyway, so they were kind of doing stuff that we saw before 2022 on defense. So, you've been talking a lot about that really exciting stuff. We'll get into the nitty gritty details, but as much as one can be enthused by the first game of preseason, as it relates to defensive changes, I was as enthused as one can be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enthused. And as I said after the game, the fact that the run defense looked like a complete and total mess against the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1 of the preseason last year, and it was very uncertain how they were trying to fit the run / it just didn't have logic. Fast forward to this, and then obviously, we're now 2022 turned out. Fast forward to this year and this preseason, and there's just a clearer sound, logic, line of thinking present, and lo and behold, the way they defend the run seems better and was fairly effective, albeit for some shaky individual mess ups or just poor play or lesser talent causing some issues. But yeah, and it's funny that like I tweeted out in December 2022 that they had in previous years more multiplicity, like reduced over fronts, reduced under line movements. And then lo and behold, in 2023 preseason, they're doing reduced over front, basically, reduced under, and they're doing line movements. All the things which weren't there in 2022, right. All the things we are calling for, and they're doing them now. Right. And 2022 was such a kind of, there were different phases to the defense where they didn't do very much because they were trying to fix other issues or firefight, and so it was very like distinctly siloed. Like it was,
and we'll get into the details of why, but like all those things that you mentioned right off the bat, it cuts into the yards that you yield just by alignment. Like forget about who's on the field, just the like pure whiteboard. Like you're better on the board now. With theory, and then you're also the downstream effect of that is allows the defensive players to play with techniques that are just more conducive toward being an effective football player. Like what they're doing last year, it's just there aren't many teams that do that frequently and do it well. There just aren't. So like every team that tried failed. So the lesson is that really the scheme has to do some of the heavy lifting. And there's a further lesson, like we say, the run doesn't matter, which it does matter less than passing. But that if you take the principle to the extreme where you scheme like it doesn't matter, then it will start to matter. And the Seahawks were an illustration of that last year. So they're no, go ahead.
Well, it sounded like you were going to do a nice conclusion, so my apologies for interrupting. But like, what is cool is it like before this preseason game, just the fact that we saw, as I've spoke about, the defensive tackle playing as a nose tackle, playing in the one technique rather than head up or on the inside shoulder of the guard, but actually playing on the outside shoulder of the center, one gapping. Before the game, I wrote an article on my Substack, Seahawks on Tape, The run defense is going to improve schematically, and there's all these Pete Carroll quotes about him diving into it and all that good stuff, and then lo and behold, you watch the preseason game, and not only is that supported, not only is the nose tackle playing as we expected them to when they're in those nickel even fronts, but there's other stuff like I've just spoke about, other schematic things they're doing, which it just seems far more sensible. And ultimately, the impact of that is not just like it fitting with how we view it on a board, or it being a clearer line of thinking and a clearer process for us when we're watching this bat, and as we'll see in some of this upcoming footage. But it's clear that the players themselves, lo and behold, are able to execute better within that, and they play faster. They have a bit more of an idea of what's going on. They know when they can take their shots within the scheme, and they know where their help in the run support is arriving from. They know where the teammate is. They know what technique to play to stop the run, and how they are a cog in the whole machine, and how they all fit together. Like, it's very, very visually apparent on here, even if there are mistakes made.
Right. For sure.
There you go. Now, Griff, before we dive into the tape, offensive-wise, I mean, watching live, there wasn't too much you could glean from it. Anything stand out to you on the tape?
I think the areas of like the most, what do you want to call it, that demand the most attention, probably you could say, is what goes on at center and right guard. Left guard is Damian Lewis's spot, I think, for sure. So right guard, there's a competition going on between Phil Haynes and Bradford. Haynes just kind of seemed like fine, not impressive, not particularly, dissuasive. Is that even a word?
Looked a bit rusty.
He looked a little rusty. But then Bradford did some intriguing things, but then against second and third stringers, so it's hard to gauge that, but hopefully they just give him more snaps, because if he's good enough to win the job, then great.
He looked a bit inexperienced, especially against the higher strings. And again, you don't know if it's rust, and that's why this second game I'm really looking forward to see if these guys kind of shake stuff off and they're a bit more kind of consistent. He had like up and down moments, but
yeah.
Pete Carroll said he's 342 pounds, but he is so powerful and quite fast mover, considering. It's just a matter for him, I'd say, of like brushing up that technique. Like, I don't know what LSU was really doing, but he just needs to brush it up a bit more. And that's why that's why you take him in the fourth round. He's an athlete who hits people really hard, and is a violent kind of player. He probably just needs a year to acclimatize, to learn stuff, and then suddenly you've got a real solid-looking interior offensive lineman on your roster.
Right. I mean, the tackle background shows up with him. At center, I probably have a slightly against the grain opinion there, because there's a lot of hype with Oluwatimi, which I understand, intriguing, but I really don't think Brown and Olu really separated themselves from each other.
I was watching it back. I'd agree with that assessment. I felt Brown did fine, and Olu against their first string, or I don't know if he is their first string, but against that nose, the first guy, number 95, he did okay. But like he had, again, you don't know if it's rust, you don't know if it's getting up to speed, but like he didn't separate himself, as you said.
Yeah, and like nothing concerning.
No,
it's just if we're looking for something conclusive, it just hasn't happened yet. So like, just let them keep grinding and get snaps in.
Right, and as Pete Carroll pointed out, like, he hurt his elbow, so he's fallen behind a bit. He's working from even more of a behind position than the fact he is a rookie, fifth round pick, whereas Evan Brown is a vet, albeit a low cost free agent ad.
Yeah, but he, like you said, a vet, and he started at multiple positions. He's got thousands of snaps on him, so. So I mean, he's a legit, real deal player. That said, there probably is more potential with Oluwatimi. It's just, let the rookie be a rookie. If he doesn't win the job, it's fine.
I think also Brown, him being relatively short, he gives him kind of and still quite large in terms of mass. It gives him a sort of a better looking anchor than Blythe had. Now, I don't want to get carried away after one game of preseason, but Blythe's height and then lack of arm length, it meant it looked a bit awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the final thing I'd say about the offense is Drew Lock, man. Okay, so the pass pro wasn't perfect, but it's rarely going to be perfect in the NFL. He was very much in the mode of, if the thing I'm looking at over that side isn't going to come open by the time I feel a slight bit of pressure, I'm just moving to my check down or like the opposite side. He left like quite a bit of meat on the bone of concepts, I felt, where, and obviously he's trying not to make a mistake. And maybe in the second game, again, we see him kind of take some more risks, get a better feel for those windows. But there's stuff where there's like the intermediate route clearing the kind of underneath zone defender or whatever, and he doesn't wait for it to wrap around or doesn't throw it. The one time he kind of tried to was the JSN, and it almost got the timing was a bit off. JSN got a hand to it, and so it wasn't picked. But like, I don't know if that dissuades him further. But like, Griff, I don't know if you agree with what I'm saying. Like,
no, I do. He's confusing because even though he stays in the pocket, he's so inconsistent with his deliberate choices. And like, he'll read one thing correctly, and then the next play kind of have similar principles going on, and then just abandon structure. Even though he's in the pocket still, you can abandon structure and stay in the pocket. Like, he's just, I don't know. It's bizarre. And then the other thing is, like, the one area where he kind of has no excuse not to show improvement is the procedural pre-snap stuff. Like, and Nate Tice talked about this on the Athletic podcast, but like, he's not getting guys aligned correctly still. He's having to lean on the center more for protection calls. It's just, you need to have more command of that, because that's your floor. That's what keeps the floor up is that stuff. When he threw that touchdown, it looked really nice. And like, he's capable of, like, when he's capable of high level throws. When he sailed that one throw to JSN when he had pressure right on him, I mean, that's a difficult throw to make, but there are very few quarterbacks that can kind of still get that throw off with that velocity. And yeah, it could have been a pick, but it's just
the play which came back on the illegal shift where he pinged it down the sideline to, was it Dallas? No. A running back, but he was under pressure, and the kind of arm angle and velocity he did that was super impressive. Again, very few guys are able to do that. It's just the pre and post snap process leaves, like, I don't know at this point, can he be fixed?
Yeah. The one thing I do like is that his scrambling decision making is he's only doing it when it makes sense to. So that means like something is going on right in his mind. I don't know. I mean, he's a good backup to have, right? Like, let's just think of him as a backup quarterback. Like, there are worse backup quarterback situations, because we know he can still get the ball to DK's vicinity. He can get the ball to Tyler Lockett's vicinity. He will rip dig routes. He'll get fooled by underneath droppers and throw dumbass picks, but he'll still rip it when it's there. So like, you'll get volume production with him. Okay. But will you get efficiency with him? Will you eliminate negative plays that you don't need to have? Probably not. But I mean, he's still fascinating in some vein, just because of the arm talent. But hopefully we never really have to test that experiment out.
Yeah, he is definitely hard for these quarterback coaches to quit.
I mean, I would rather have. I mean, just personally, I would rather have a Teddy Bridgewater as your backup, a guy who plays the position. I mean, Teddy should be starting. I mean, he should be starting. That, unfortunately for him, Jacoby Brissett should be a bona fide starter in this league for some team. Like, a high quality team can win games with Jacoby Brissett. But I mean, so
Jacoby had some time in Seattle, right?
Did he?
I don't.
No. If he did, no,
he didn't. This is a Seahawks podcast. Who am I confusing him with?
I have no idea, Matty. Why are you confusing him with? I think that's your shoddy brain thinking because he coached him in Indianapolis.
Yes. Thank you, Griff. That's why. It's not that Brett Hundley and Brissett are causing me confusion.
Now, one fun thing to think about is what if Frank Reich took by Jacoby Brissett? He might still be coaching in Indianapolis right now.
There you go. See, Chris is on the same wavelength here. Yeah, Brissett was really good for Cleveland last year in the disgrace of a season.
Well, so give him receivers and give him
and a bit more
protection.
trust, right? Like, why are we just thinking that? Anyway, not our problem. So you mentioned Drew Lock's touchdown throw. Jake Bobo's shot at making the roster is slim. You watch the tape back and he is slow, but I just wanted to talk about the touchdown that he caught because it's pretty cool. It's against second round corner in Andrew Booth Jr. He suffered a serious knee injury last year, but he would have been a first round pick himself if he hadn't had a bit of an injury record. You see Drew Lock after motioning the back in, he knows he has man coverage because a backer was outside, or that might be a safety. But you see him alert. I think we've just seen it. You see him alert the coverage though. Now, what's impressive here, if you're if you're a receiver facing press coverage, you need to get the cornerback to move. And that's what Jake Bobo did. He got him to move. He wants to create room for the sideline go route, and he gets this corner to step. He has closed the space here to then maximize the space outside. It's a quick enough release. He's not taking forever to do this. And he's decisive with it, and the tempo of it really got this DB thinking inside release route like a dig or a slant or an in-breaker, and then he broke to the outside, and he had enough wheels to catch this football.
Yeah, and a good enough throw from Drew.
Yeah, good placement. Now, what's especially cool about this Bobo touchdown, we've just seen the release. I don't think we'll see any other angles of it. The play prior, so that was a 3rd and 8. The 2nd and 8, here's Bobo against Booth again. Now, just look, he gets press coverage, and notice on his the release we've just seen, he walked it out sort of twice to the inside and then stemmed outside. Here he's running a hitch with the slot running a kind of seam or a corner. But against press man like this, he is not the primary. He's not really going to get the ball. His route is kind of just bait to then maximize the room for this guy. But he uses this instead, this opportunity to gain intelligence on the corner. So if you watch his release here, you see he does the walk it out outside, and look at the corner. He does this sliding technique, the same sliding technique, which got him to move inside to create room to the outside for the fade. So what I'd say about Bobo is, okay, he did get knocked around on an intermediate crosser with a poor awareness, but when he's running these kind of vertical stem routes, he's a very crafty route runner. And for a guy to have been productive as he was in college, when you do run a 4.7 40 or maybe it was a 4.9, but I think something went wrong with the timing. But for a guy, to run fairly slow, yet get so much production in college and be so open, you have to be a crafty route runner, and he is. This. You see how here the corner slides with that little step, so he immediately knows on the next play he's going to slide with me when I do a similar thing to the inside, and then I create the opportunity. So that's actually pretty high level receiver play.
Yeah.
In terms of making the roster, Griff, are you with me that it's very, 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 very long odds for him, given, I mean, his biggest play he made on was it Sunday or Saturday? It was Sunday. Saturday. Friday.
I don't even know
Thursday.
what day it is right now. Thursday, yeah.
The biggest play he made on Thursday was the special teams play, because that's how he makes the team.
Special teams is a good point. I think so. He's obviously intriguing. Ideally, I think they can get him onto the practice squad. I think that can happen. The problem is that, like you said, he's an X. He's an outside receiver. In this offense, redundancy at Z or slot is not redundancy. It's interchangeability. redundancy at X is redundancy. Unless you're an X who can also play Z, which is Tariq Young.
And they were trying to work him in at the Z position during this game because of that reason.
And right. And like I don't know about that, Chief. So so keep it on the practice squad. You can be an emergency player. If they lose bodies, you need special teams players throughout the year. Obviously, we know Eskridge's situation is up in the air in more ways than one. Tariq Young has accrued soft tissue injuries. I mean, hopefully he just stays healthy. But Kate Johnson has a concussion, so I don't know what his recovery timeline is. So there might be a vacancy by default. Cody Thompson can't stay healthy. So all the usual guys that seem like that should fill out the back of the depth chart at receiver may not be able to go, so he might just get in by default. So I mean, yeah, I'm rooting for him to keep it up. Anything he can give as a receiver is still good. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
There you go. You haven't been grinding the special teams footage yet?
Apparently not.
Okay. Well, Griff, anything else you'd like to mention on the offense, or shall we transition to our preferred side of the football?
Trying to think, did some try-hard tight end flash? Is anyone going to push Tyler Mabry? I don't think so. No.
Is Tyler Mabry going to make the roster?
That's a good question.
TBD.
I think they appreciate him enough. I think he might. How many? I mean, they might week one. They might only go 5 receivers, and then just stash practice squad, and then go 4 tight end.
How does this is stupid of me. How does Eskridge's suspension get how does that count on their roster? Do they have to roster him still? They must, right?
No, I don't. I think he's like
he's like not able to be on the roster, so he doesn't count on the roster.
Right, like he's categorized like is it the NFI list?
Right.
I don't know. And then once he's activated, then you have to make a roster move.
There you go.
Because think about it, if you had 6 guys with suspensions, you have to be allowed to fill out your roster to 53, right?
Yeah. Because I guess if they know Eskridge, they've got Eskridge coming back who has actually played NFL games. Obviously, they feel high about Jackson Smith and Jigba. The fact they've got those 2 like wide receiver 3 types, it probably increases Mabry's chances of making it and them carrying 4 tight ends. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, we need to see what's actually going on with Noah Fant. And I think Disley had been banged up. So,
yeah.
There you go. Right, Griff.
All right.
Defense.
Yeah. What did you the actual good stuff.
Yeah, true. So I guess the big positive for me on the defensive players is that Devin Bush actually can play football.
Yeah. He took me by surprise. Everyone knows how much of a Debbie Downer I was being about the whole linebacker situation this offseason. I did not I knew I remember watching Devin Bush at Michigan. I was enamored with him, but then he hasn't done well in Pittsburgh. Although Pittsburgh runs a scheme where the linebackers really aren't asked to do anything. They blitz and they cover the running back out of the backfield. It's pretty uninspiring stuff. But then he had the ACL injury, and from the people that know the Steelers, he just athletically wasn't the guy he was at Michigan. Combined with the other elements, I just had no reason. I just felt like who he was replacing was a better bet. Like there's just, now you're talking pure theory, but athletically, he moved around really well. His change of direction, which is the first thing you think of with an ACL tear, he looked like he did at Michigan. I mean, he's bendy all over the place, flexible, can flip his hips, can run a curved line really he can gain speed running a curved line. Most guys lose speed. Like he's a different mover. His long speed was there. His nose for the ball, like his angles, being tight off the hip, running as tight of an angle as he can, is really impressive. And then just he seemingly understood blocking schemes. He definitely flashed his ability in coverage. There's a lot he can do well already. There's some stuff that needs to be worked on, but theoretically can be. And you wonder how much was just, coaching points for week one, just wanting everyone to be in the right mind space for the run. So I don't know. So he gives them serious options. depending on what happens with the linebacker situation this year, because that story has yet to be told completely.
Yeah. I just liked how he found the ball. Like he had a nose for the ball. He was quick. He
Yeah.
played like certain that there was little hesitancy. He was able to run and hit.
I mean, this is so good. Like he knows the front side A gap is his gap, or rather,
Or just fall
no,
back
it's
off the
the front side
movement. But
B.
I like how he just takes the daylight when it's there, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Like he closes space, works laterally, and then bursts through. Like you can't move more efficiently than that in that context. Like it's perfect. It's literally perfect.
Yeah, and the only thing really to say about the inside backers is that all of them were very poor picking up the play action routes, like the bootlegs, the race routes, the deep over routes, that sort of stuff. Now, as you pointed out in the DMs to me, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Jordan Brooks, Seattle's history at linebacker or recent history at linebacker has made that assignment look easier than it is.
Cody
I
Barton
think
too.
also the way that Seattle played coverage in this game, just in general, they're very spot drop when they're in zone, especially in that underneath layer, like at the inside backer position. And to me, it just hints that they haven't actually stressed that yet. They haven't really emphasized that yet or coached it yet. Which again, is the preseason. You have to kind of pick what you're installing and pick what you want to be good at. It's slightly surprising to me that they hadn't for this opponent, given they were probably expecting a fair bit of kind of two-backy play action style looks. But, you know, come regular season, Bush should be able to do it. Like, he has the movement skills. I was surprised how well he was moving because I thought he'd lost it. Maybe it just took him a while to get it back. And obviously that Seattle culture, the confidence that can come from that. Yeah, but there was regular times where he's playing next to Rattigan, who, you know, let's not be mean about Rattigan, but Bush is beating Rattigan to plays on Rattigan's side. Like, he's just much keying quicker, running quicker, hitting harder. Like, he's just a better player. So, interesting, really, how that impacts Bobby Wagner if Bush continues, because like Jordan Brooks was activated off the PUP list today. How does, is Wagner really going to play as much as we think? To be decided.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the coaches don't even know. It's just what does Brooks look like in practice, I think, is their biggest question. So
yeah, and that seems a way off. I think he sort of turned down the idea of playing in preseason games. So
yeah, let's look at one Bush play where he does do well in coverage. 946. It's against play action.
Oh,
he had a couple of really good plays in coverage on the backside of like weak choice, covering those in routes. One he had the pass breakup on, and then later in that drive he had literally the same identical coverage against the same route. I think against the same receiver. It's just the ball didn't get thrown his way. But so this is really good because this is drift, right? This is strike. This route gets completed every single Sunday, and it gets completed because the linebacker in Devin Bush's shoes doesn't clear the run action quick enough and get into his drop quick enough and run the angle that he does to get into that window. And it's a really hard route for the outside corner to cover because you're starting with outside leverage because the reduced split. It's hard to close off that ground. Now, Trey Brown does do a good job here. But this is perfect from Devin Bush. He runs an angle toward the hash. The ball is usually caught a yard outside the hash to the boundary. Sometimes caught on the hash. So you're getting really good double coverage on the play action dig route, and teams make a living off of this play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really good. It's just impressive. The recognition is half the battle, but how quickly he eats up ground is impressive. It shows that he knows what's coming off of this formation. It's under center. Okay, I have one receiver on the ball to my side. As soon as he gets run action, he knows exactly what he's doing. So,
Good player. Good player. Now, that is super encouraging. Seattle has depth that we felt better about than the inside backer position at safety. However, 6th round pick Derek Reed and undrafted free agent Jonathan Sutherland, they both impressed, Griff. Like, these are kind of on the fringe of the roster safeties, given Seattle has Julian Love, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams to return, Kobe Bryant having a great game as a safety too. That's 4 guys. How many safeties are you going to carry? Well, Sutherland, Griff, and
Joey Blunt
and Derek
too.
Reed look real solid players.
Agreed. I really like Sutherland's game is really admirable. He did some impressive stuff. He also had some poor plays, but I think it's just like he needs to be viewed, in my opinion, as a practice squad player that you invest in, and eventually he breaks out, just like Joey Blunt did. And I mean, breaking out is maybe a little rich to say, but in the coach's eyes in practice, he worked his way up. And Pete never stops talking about Joey Blunt anytime he can, anytime he gets brought up. So I feel like this is it with Sutherland, but him being primarily a nickel, there are just too many bodies at nickel. He's not going to play there. So I don't think they feel the need to roster him. He feels
the
like
way I see it is he's like a Jamal Adams type of mirror in that kind of big nickel mold. Like the way that they used the nickel in this game, like closer to the line of scrimmage, that's against running teams or under center teams. Like say they're under center 11, you want to play nickel. That's where Jamal Adams will make his money. But like, I don't think there's a room for Sutherland. Maybe on the practice squad.
And I think he would want to stay. Like because when
he knows the system, he needs another year. He could get called up.
Yeah. Jarek Reed, on the other hand, I think we both agree. I mean, he looks like legit. He can play in the shell. He can play on the underneath. He's a really efficient mover. He's bursty. He has really good density for tackling. Long speed, short speed. Like, he's a player.
Absolute player. All of the techniques that Seattle want their deep safeties to do, and he's kind of like a Quandre Diggs mirror. In his technique looks like Quandre Diggs' techniques. His which is high praise, but his skill set is more kind of like a Julian Love mirror, I'd say. But don't forget, Diggs started him as a nickel corner as well.
Yeah, and I mean,
and an outside corner at Texas. But yeah.
Yep.
But this play here from Reed is super impressive. Any coverage technique they wanted him to do from deep, he was very proficient at.
And so they're in quarter, half here, right? Quarters to the boundary.
Yep.
Because it's 12 personnel, so I don't know how they're establishing strength.
Yeah, there were some plays that looked like field boundary, and then some plays where it looked like receiving strength. Because they're in nickel, I think they just do it to the
nickel side.
They always set the 3 tech to the tight end, and then I think they set the quarters to the passing strength.
So they're in quarters to the boundary, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this play is impressive because he's a quarter, so that means his primary responsibility is that tight end. If he runs vertical, that's the first thing he needs to do is keep inside and high leverage on the tight end. Obviously, he goes across the formation, so his eyes immediately go to number 1, which is that receiver running that race route, right?
Yeah. And it's just like route recognition here and concept recognition, the efficiency of movement. He's all over this route. And if you're the quarterback and you were trying to throw it here, there's no room for this ball.
Right. And this right here is why you run this coverage, because you
get
want the safeties.
4 layers.
Yeah. You want the safety nailing down. And this looks really simple, but again, this route gets caught every week, even against too high, against the teams that aren't as good at it. And this looks simple and not that impressive because it's easy for him. He's making the difficult look easy.
Yeah, and because he's so tight to this corner is in the cover 2. Rather than worrying about this, he's able to have more confidence coming down for this route. And
you can see how it eases the Mike linebacker's responsibility. He doesn't have to completely robot that route. He gets underneath underneath it a little bit up to the field hash, and then he can play top down on the delay flat right there on 48. So like they've got perfect layers here. And like part of why he plays this so well is because of the pre-snap indicators, right? It's an under center boot. It's under center. You're on the hash. He knows, okay, what's the most likely thing here if I read pass? It's gonna be
and Griff, formationally, my 2 is off the line. So if he's likely, especially the way he's off the line, to go along the formation and then split flow. Who's my new threat? Etc. Etc.
Right. And like the next question is, okay, is it pocket play action or boot? Well, 12 personnel, you're going to see more boots on average. You're not going to see pocket play action unless it's that drift route that we talked about earlier. But it doesn't matter because he's just reading 2 to 1. So
yeah, you see his eyes here. He sees this 2. He sees this wide action. That's boot or split zone with the cutback. And it's elephants on parade because they're all high, but they're not getting downfield. Mm-hmm. But that's a lot of processing in a short time. And ultimately, very good eye discipline and good footwork at the start.
Yep. So, good stuff there.
Chris A asks, who's playing on the defensive right hash behind the OLB? This is Sutherland, the nickel. This is what I mean about the nickel getting involved, because in the cover 2, he's at the curl to 2 defender. He's fitting off this outside backer, basically. But I think in cover 2, he'd have the C. Okay. Any other plays you want to look at for Reed, Griff?
He had that one pass breakup in the underneath, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, and he fit the alley well when he hit, and he ran after the ball, which is really important.
Yeah.
So, you can check out our tweets on this subject if you want real like nitty gritty stuff, like the minutiae of it all, as you know. Trey Brown, Griff, he had a kind of up and down game. It's kind of what the broadcast showed there. I didn't really glean much more from it. None of the other corners really stood out to me. I think they're just there,
The touchdown wasn't that big of a deal to me. I mean,
he just mistimed how he played it, right?
Yeah, I just missed. I mean, yeah, that's just going to happen. He was assignment correct though on it. The play preceding that was difficult. I mean, that was a tricky concept too.
That's what I spoke about after. Yeah.
So that was one, and then he had the missed tackle. I mean, he needs to get, like everyone, he needs to get his feet wet a little bit. He had some good coverage reps in this game where the ball wasn't thrown, and he looked the part. He looked like what we've been hearing out of camp. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing for him is it looks like his movement skills are a bit more comfort. Back to where they were pre-patella tendon.
Yeah.
2022, it just didn't look right. Like the click and close looked gone.
Yeah, and the thing is, as we evaluate him, I mean, who is he competing against? It's Michael Jackson, and Jackson didn't necessarily stand out in an overtly positive way. He too needs to get his feet wet. He gave up that one out route. I mean, he got routed up by Jordan Addison. Addison is a good route runner. That's what he does. But then he also had some fine plays too. So really, it's if we're gauging Trey, we're gauging him against Jackson, and I think those guys, kind of like the center battle, like no one's really separating themselves yet, at least from this game. So there might be some commentary in that Trey is playing the left side and Jackson's playing the right side. We know when Woolen's back out there, Jackson's getting moved off the right side. So does that mean they give left corner to Jackson? Is he the one and Trey's the 2 and they work it out that way?
I think there's an argument just to split it, go 1 series, 1 series, 1 series, 1 series, just make it ferocious.
Yeah.
But it would be real nice if we saw Devin Witherspoon. Like, he's not going to be out for this game. He's out for this game, I mean. He's not going to be out on the field this game, which sucks because you would like to see it.
Right. All right. Who else do we want to talk about?
Well, let's go from back to the front again. Let's go back to the front. So We spoke about Bush. We gave him his props. Patrick O'Connell found the ball in a way that the other guys didn't. Number 57, and he should be ahead of Rattigan, in my
He
opinion.
should
He
be
can
ahead of
actually run.
Radigan and BBK. He can run and he knows what is happening. Like
Yeah, the
he's
identifying, the hits, the okay, you have a gap, but you gotta get to the ball ultimately.
there are some things in coverage that like he's biting on the cheese, so to speak. And then like even in pure drop back, we're not even talking play action, but I think that can be worked on. I think there might be something there. I don't know. It remains to be seen, but you definitely stick with him, I think.
He stood out because he actually looked like a NFL inside
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
against third string players.
And
So
it's not just because he's wearing 57 and of a particular complexion, reminding us of someone else. He was
is
good.
Patrick O'Connell actually Patrick O'Connell, or
Right. Or as does Cody Barton have an alias? So yeah.
well, Griff, as I pointed out to Ty, he is from Montana, which is cowboy country, and probably had a ranch similar to Cody. Anyway,
I have to grab my laptop charger before I leave this podcast recording
oh my
unceremoniously.
word,
So I'll be
ladies
right
and
back.
gentlemen, people, listeners of the Seattle Overload podcast, can Griff do it? Can he grab his laptop charger in time? While Griff has left me, in the chat, please do post stuff that you'd like to know, you'd like to see. That is always helpful. It's good to see you guys in here. Now, I'd like to talk about the defensive front, the actual guys up front, the outside backers, the interior defensive line. We didn't see Draymond Jones. We didn't see Mario Edwards Jr. Those are obviously pretty major pieces who they're relying on. We didn't see Jaron Reed. Cam Young was out injured. So, this was very much lower stringers, as it was for a lot of the positions, but it's noteworthy. We did see Miles Adams. We did see Mike Morris. We did see Levi Bell. We saw Tyreek Smith. We saw Derek Hall. We saw Levi Bell. We saw Jordan Ferguson. We saw other players. Mike Morris. Griff, who out of the front impressed you? Are you massively concerned about anyone? Roderick Perry is a name I should have mentioned. Robert Cooper.
Yeah, it's cool that they got solid play out of Perry. He clearly separated himself over Cooper.
And he mainly played nose tackle, right?
Right. I think we're looking at a practice squad candidate who they keep around. I think Brian Monet started on the practice squad, then he got called up mid-year, his rookie year, 2019.
He did, and don't forget, we said Monet was bad. On that preseason tape, he looked really poor.
He looked really poor, and then he was a new player in 2020. And initially with Perry, what clips were available, his technique, the stuff that you can control was really poor.
They were having to, on the training camp live stuff, they're having to constantly correct him. He wasn't striking guys how they wanted. His feet were off.
But it's interesting that they were spending a lot of extra time with him. They waive him, then they bring him back. And clearly they saw something. Because, just looking at the traits, he's huge. He sinks really well. He can bend at the knees. And he can move for his weight. So clearly they thought that, he's probably really weight room strong too. So clearly they thought, if we can coach him up, he should be viable, because playing nose tackle when you have the traits shouldn't be that difficult. It shouldn't be that much of a development curve. So I don't think they're going to carry 3 nose tackles week 1. So he's definitely going to be cut from the 53, but hopefully he's on practice squad.
He's already been cut once this season or off season, but I agree. He, compared to Robert Cooper, who Cooper looked real slow and sluggish, and maybe he was dealing with something. He also has short arms, but Perry did fine. And generally kept the guy off the backer. The guy in front of him, he kept them off the backers. He was fine against doubles. Cooper late off the ball. He let the guy he was supposed to be striking get on top of backers and clean release, and
he couldn't
not a good game for him. It's not over yet, but it's not what he'd have hoped to put together.
Yeah, well, he did get waived, I think.
Oh,
I think he's gone. That was the response to this game, which is further confirmation as Matty owns himself on live YouTube
No,
stream.
I feel bad for him now.
Yeah, yeah. Now
Tape don't lie.
yeah, unfortunately. But that's confirmation that they like what they're seeing from Perry, which is cool. Mike Morris, so he kind of showed a little bit of everything, good and bad, in ways that you'd expect. The
Yeah,
bad there, yeah.
he didn't look too poor to me, but
No, he didn't. I mean, there's some clips where just the lack of density and the lack of natural leverage caught up to him, especially in contexts where you wouldn't really expect him to hold up too much.
like
Um,
combos, the kind of stuff which Draymond Jones will struggle with the combos.
yeah,
They
I
have
mean,
to sort of scheme that up or technique that up from linebackers.
yeah, yeah. Well, one-on-ones, he seemed fine. He actually had some impressive plays one-on-ones. They pirate him a lot, right? So he's clearly adept at that. In short yardage, he actually had some impressive plays in short yardage where, yeah, he's taking on a combo, but they've got enough bodies in the line of scrimmage that it's not as difficult. He just held the point well. Um, so there's lots of like, and then pass rush. There were some, I think there were like three snaps that showed up on the Trey Brown touchdown. He and Derek Hall have a good rep, but Morris, he's in a two gapping stance, so that's not conducive toward getting upfield, but he gets upfield anyway. He's really reactive, and then he works to the outside, and then he extends kind of like a bull rush, but not quite. But he manages to get full lockout to maintain separation on the guard, and that opens up his rip. So then he just rips through with his inside arm, and then ends up getting a quarterback knockdown. If the ball's held, that's a sack. He had another good rep from memory where it's play action. He reads run, and then he immediately transitions. He swipes. Uh, he kind of does like an arm over move to the inside, and then the center slides to him, and then he does a hump move on the center and actually gets his inside half clean again. So like that's that fluidity and the length, and actually like in both those snaps, the strength, the play strength showing up. Like you look at him, you think, okay, he should be quick twitched and lengthy and technical, and really he's not really as quick as he is reactive. And then he's not as finesse oriented as he is strong. Like strength is a skill. And it's kind of like Michael Bennett was not quick twitched, but he was very reactive and he was very strong. And it gave the illusion of power. He didn't have natural like power. Like his jumps were not that great. Mike Morris's jumps are not that great, but when you're reactive and coordinated and strong, it can combine or it can recreate power in some ways. That's kind of what I'm seeing with him. Like his best rushes are strength oriented. So from there, you want to see technique developed off of that because that's where it can take him to new heights. So that's my Morris rant. But I liked what we saw from him.
yeah, I was impressed with him too. Like, I think he's definitely got that kind of Draymond Jones mirror ability. I think he should be able to contribute to the rotation a tiny bit if needed, which is what they were expecting this year. Now, the guy who stood out for me on the interior was Jacob Sykes, number 69, 24-year-old undrafted free agent. He just brought some real juice to it. Like I mean, again, this is a guy who's probably going to be on the practice squad. I don't think, it'd be a very uphill path for him. He transferred from Harvard and was at UCLA most recently. But like Griff, he had some more dynamic ability on that interior, rushing the passer than the other bigs. And he had a nice win away from the slide to the man side, taking the two-way go. What was his story coming out? Does he have short arms or?
I'm not sure. It's probably short arms and viewed as undersized. So kind of tweener world. He has explosiveness that is really hard to find from people in his kind of situation of being undrafted and stuff. And
yeah, so
he was
6'3", 282 pounds, and he has 32 and 3/4 inch arms. So not really short, but not long. There you go. Didn't test that great, but yeah, on tape, He had a 32-inch vert, so I guess that kind of shows. But yeah, he is explosive, and he will cause guys problems like the lower strings when he's rushing from the inside. It'll cause them issues. You can tell that he hasn't played at like a massively high level for that long. That kind of shows up. But yeah, an intriguing name, and one of these guys like we mentioned, Monet. He will probably be on the practice squad, and then the following year you might see it. Heck, Miles Adams is a guy who was like that too, right? And he had a pretty solid game here, taken to the 4A stuff well.
He was the best player on the line of scrimmage for both teams when he was out there. So I think it just kind of confirms that, yeah, he's going to be a high snap player this year coming off the bench for them.
Yeah.
He's probably the first guy off the bench.
Yeah. So outside backer, Griff, for me, like after watching the broadcast, I was like, wow, Maffei seemed to have a good game. Watching the tape back, he's who we thought he was. He's kind of just the same guy, but a bit more certain in the scheme.
Yeah.
And when he's certain in the scheme, he will cause problems, especially against the run, because he has speed, he has power, he seems to be using his hand better. And that play he made where he struck the tackle back in the B gap bubble in the nickel even front and then shed outside still for the tackle for loss. I mean, that's super impressive. Like he can stand up tackles.
Yep.
But like what was telling to me and my bold prediction is I think Derek Hall is going to outsnap Maffei this year because he can contribute on all three downs genuinely. And like illustrations of that are like when they ran a tackle end exchange game, Hall is just way more fluid than Maffei and coordinated than Maffei doing that. The path is tighter. Okay, he was chipped, so it's a slightly different scenario, different pass pro scheme. But like he just looks like a more fluid mover and a more football mover. Pete Carroll said that he's one of the fellas. And then today on the radio, he mentioned how he's like a good football player. He'll do the dirty work. He'll do the nitty gritty. But for me, like as a pass rusher, if he can have like a quality win this preseason off the edge, which Maffei's really not had, he's just an effort kind of dude at this point.
He had a couple of bull rushes, but that's where he ate up ground really quickly. But he wasn't finding the corner.
Maffei cannot find the corner.
The thing is, once he's there, he knows what to do. It's getting there is the problem, and he's still false stepping. Like on the one bull rush that he had, he had one impressive one and one kind of less impressive one, but you still give it to him. On the more impressive one, like he's laid off the ball because he's false stepping. He's replaced stepping with his front foot instead of just rolling off his back one and firing forward. So I don't know.
Yeah, so my take is if Hall can win the edge, then he will win the edge. He will play more than Maffei. Like he seems like a real good pickup. And we had a question from someone a lot earlier about how we feel about the outside backer position. Like, is it real? Like, yes, it is real. Last year, compare the situations, and we said this about people being drafted. If you compare the situations, last year they picked up Bruce Irvin, 35-year-olds off the street, after they tried to pick up Darryl Johnson and he got hurt. But a vet unsigned guy during the season because they didn't trust Darryl Taylor to set the edge. Heck, if Darryl Taylor's run D is poor enough to warrant him only being a pass rush specialist, they now have two viable run defenders who bring juice, and Hall and Maffei, if he can work more speed to power stuff, are both intriguing as pass rushers. They're young, they're back-to-back second-round picks, they have real options opposite Uchenna Nwosu other than Darryl Taylor. So, I mean, that for me is a win, along with, Tyreek Smith. This was an okay game for him, kind of on and off. Levi Bell's kind of interesting. Would like to see more of him. Again, watching it back fully in detail, he wasn't as impressive to me, but he has effort and
traits
and hustle
were there,
and he has grit. So
Yep, agreed.
Okay. Finally, we have two questions. So we have one question. So Thanos Knicks, thank you so much, Thanos Knicks. Are the Knicks Thanos?
You,
Griff, you have basketball knowledge. The Knicks are definitely not Thanos, are they?
I mean, what does that mean? Can a basketball team be Thanos?
Well, to me, it implies that the Knicks are the destroyer of worlds.
The Knicks got some talent, but I don't
But
think
do they have the what is it? The 5 Horcruxes? Is that right?
I
Is
have
that
no idea what you're talking. Or are you talking about Infinity Stones?
Oh yeah, not Horcruxes, sorry. That's the Hulk, right?
You can't be a pop culture snob and not having even seen the original Star Wars trilogy in full. You can't make fun of me
What do you
for
mean in
watching.
full? Like the director's cut, the George
You
Lucas
haven't.
special?
You have not seen all three of the original trilogy, have you?
Of course I have.
Oh, okay.
It's
Well,
Star Wars.
every
Are you
reference
mad?
goes right over your head.
You've
You're
lost your
too
bloody
s-
marbles.
you're too slow to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, that's
Okay.
another reference to another piece of pop culture that you wouldn't understand.
Oh, sorry, I don't get pop culture. Sorry, my head's just full of football. I'm so sorry.
I forgive you.
Thanks, man. Okay, so Thanos Knicks, do they still have that RJ Barrett guy?
I don't know.
Is he even called RJ Barrett?
I don't know.
Do they still have
Yes,
is it Tebow?
they do.
Tebow, their head coach?
Um,
Tommy? Tommy?
I have no idea who you're talking about. The only Nick that I
Frenchy
know is
surname kind of
is
thing?
Julius Randle
Okay.
and
Anyway,
Josh
great
Hart.
username Thanos Knicks. It's got us thinking.
All right.
Question for my fave defense nerds. Thank you very much. If they are one gapping more with their fronts, how is the math working out? Are they running less too high and sticking another safety in the box or what?
It's a great
What
question.
a question that is.
And we barely even talked about this.
Yeah, this was like the big takeaways that we spoke about it on like a wider macro level. The defense is saved because they're kind of doing it more logically and soundly, and there's a clear joined up line of thinking, and players are put in better to positions, and they're not asking impossible things of people. I think it's important, firstly, to separate 3-4 personnel where they're basically running a shaded bare front. Now we'll talk about how that's shaded, and then talk about the 2-4-5 personnel nickel front where they have 4 guys down at the line of scrimmage. So because it's easier, if I first deal with the 3-4, when it's too high, the nose tackle and the 4-eye player, so the defensive end on the inside shoulder of the tackle, shade to the strength. The idea being that this gives the inside backers friendlier angles for flowing to the strong side run. And it buys the quarter safety time to show up in the run fit too. So they're basically playing an under front when they're in too high in base.
Right.
And it just helps the angles. Now, if you got run weak out of that look, well, then that's where they're playing probably the cloud, and then the cover 2 corner can show up.
Yes.
And then the backers are already aligned kind of weak because they're stacked. One of them stacked on the shaded nose. One of them's kind of in the middle as well. So
Yeah.
it's easy for them to get there. It's under football.
So, but to answer the question, are they running less too high? From my charting, they're actually not. They're still 50-50 too high to 1 high in all calls.
Yeah.
Now that might be different. I don't know exactly what their 1 high percentage was last year in 2-4-5 nickel even. But that said, so like, how are they changing the math when they are in too high? Instead of the quarter safety. So if there are,
Well, hold on. That was 3-4 dealt with.
Yes, sorry, I jumped you.
Now Griff is going to explain how the nickel thing works.
Okay, so last year they had 2 main nickel fronts. They had 3 of them, but the third was barely used. So they had the 2-4-5, the 3-3-5. The 3-3-5 in its purest form did not feature this game. So we're just talking 2-4-5 for the moment.
And we haven't seen a single snap of nickel bear this season.
Right. Right. We have yet to see it. It might be a Jamal and Julian Love thing, whatever. Now, within the 2-4-5, the main change up front is that the nose tackle is no longer playing a mirror stepping quasi two gapping 2-eye. He's now playing a one technique, power stepping, one gapping technique. The 3 technique is still kind of playing a mirror step heavy 3, but they're doing a lot more movement with him. So the frequency in which he's having to do hard things is less frequent now, is the easiest way to describe
And
that.
he's still stepping into the guard, so
And he's still stepping into the guard. Yeah. By stepping into the guard, you mean, is he power stepping?
it's like a half power step, I think, because they don't want to get too. They want to hold the gap. So
It's more like a heavy power step, isn't it?
yeah,
We'll have to see more because we primarily only saw Morris doing it. I think we'll know more when we see Draymond Jones doing it. We'll be
Yeah.
able to either way. So as far as the math goes, 1-high versus 2-high, they had, of their run snaps anyway, they had 6 snaps playing 1-high, 8 snaps playing 2-high. So if they had one less 2-high, it'd be 7-7, right? 50-50. In the 1-high, they gave up, and we'll get to the math and the mechanics of the run fit in a second, but just to illustrate this, and it's preseason, yada, yada. They gave up 0.66 yards per carry in 1-high, less than 1 yard per carry. In 2-high, they gave up, what was it? 4.375, which would be really effective. But if you eliminate 1 8-yard run on the final drive of the game where they're like way backed up, it comes down to 2.78 yards per carry. And then collectively for the whole 2-4-5 sample, it was like what was it? It was like well under 3 yards per carry. So they did really well. When they're in 2-high, though, how the math changes previously. So if there are 5 blockers and 6 gaps, there are 5 guys in the box. And so you're down a gap. So the hardest way to do it was you're dispersing the responsibility of 3 gaps to 2 second level defenders. They don't want to do that. That would be true ball fits. They have the safety to the quarter side, say it's half quarter quarter or quarter half. They have the quarter safety effectively be the third fitter in the math. So you've got 3 open gaps, 3 second level defenders. Because he's coming from depth, it's really difficult still to make that work. So therefore they would play the heavy 2-eye, the heavy 3, and with 1 gap organization, 1 gap rules, play 2 gap-ish techniques within the rules to make the math work. It was too complicated. It's too hard. No one can do it really well. It didn't work. So
the safeties as well, the keys just seemed like murky or just messed up. Like they just didn't get involved.
Right. So they're still having the quarter safety involved. He's still the run pass key is still kind of the same, but the primary difference is the nickel now is the primary third fitter now. So he's inserting into the open gap to his near gap. He's folding in. So while the linebackers are still kind of playing with similar like stack track fallback techniques, mechanics, it still works in the aggregate better because that third player is coming from the slot, which is literally geometrically closer than that quarter safety. So
you can then from there you can then threaten you can pressure the nickel because he's closer. And I think it's important to point out the base way, the 3-4 under cover 6 way of doing it. The under cover 6 thing is how Pete Carroll did it before 2022.
Right.
And this nickel thing of getting the nickel involved in the fit, not the safety in the even front look, is basically fitting like a 4-3. That's how Pete Carroll ran nickel before 2022 as well, how he fit middle field open in nickel. Right, Griff?
Right. Yeah. So in 1-high, it doesn't matter because the nickel's in the fit or he's out of the fit, but you're gapped out. Doesn't matter. Or the safety's down, rather. The safety's in the fit, but he's in the box, so you're fine. It just doesn't matter. If the nickel's in the fit, it's because they've reduced down the line of scrimmage and he's kind of forced into it, but you're still gapped out. You're 1-to-1 defender to gap. 2-high, so basically the short answer is they're exchanging the safety for the nickel. The nickel is the primary guy. The safety's just help. It's additional help. Now there is a drawback to that in the coverage. That means the nickel can't be as heavy in the coverage The main way they're accounting for that now is to the nickel side, they're playing less cover 2 and more palms, which is a form of quarters. Long story short, if the nickel's less heavy on the slot receiver, the near safety is heavier on the slot receiver now. And that safety is now less heavy on the number 1 receiver. Whereas in cover 2, like cover 2, you're getting double coverage on the number 1 receiver. Quarters, you're getting double coverage on the number 2 receiver. They're just shifting things around.
And I just want to talk about palms. The nickel in that palms call Griff's talking about to make his fit work. His read is essentially three flat, right? Like a fast 3. Well, that tends to be the running back. So he's able to get his eyes in the right place and key it. So his coverage matching the fit and vice versa.
And so then the primary flat defender, if 2 or 1 is in the flat, it would be the outside cornerback. So that's where the palms read comes in. He's reading.
Now, yeah. So
everything's accounted for. So that's the change they're doing is palms so that the nickel can be in the fit basically from too high.
And then the other thing is that we're basically talking about scenarios where the run goes towards the nickel side and they've got the 3 tech there. And the nickel's basically fitting in the C gap, right? If there's a tight end.
Yes.
So
yes.
Thanos, one kind of math cheating thing they're doing, and we haven't talked about middle field closed, but say they get run weak, so the run is going towards where the B gap bubble is and nickel even. The outside back on that side understands what they have to do there, so they're playing that a lot thicker. Now, generally, the corner to their outside is in a cover 2 technique, so they're able to contribute a bit more against the run and be the force help. So that outside backer has the confidence to take on that block more thick. But generally, what I'd say is the outside backers are playing thicker to the tackle when they have the opportunity, and in middle field closed, where they have a safety or a nickel to their outside, being a secondary force, the outside backer's taking a shot and spiking through the B gap. So there's a few things going on. What I would suggest is, I realize, us doing this in audio format is complicated. What I would suggest is you check out this thread on Twitter, because there's a lot of the examples that we're talking about here. You can't see the thread because of, Elon. But if you check that out, going to post a lot of Seahawks tape tonight, buckle up. Check that out. Griff's also posted some tweets at See Mike Spin Move, but I was very excited about how they were doing it, so I kind of went overboard.
And they'll run this next week, of course, and we'll get some video examples of what we're talking about here. The palms fit, the nickel fit from too high.
Right, and we need a better feel for like how the techniques exactly are going to look and how they play out. But Thanos, you point out, I see the vision with Devin Witherspoon being the nickel in palms that can offer run support too. That's exactly right. Now also think about Jamal Adams being that guy close to the line of scrimmage. Like, there's a clear vision for how these players fit into this. And like, if the nickel's needed to the tight end, then that's when you'd have Adams maybe do it. Or they're like a big more of a run team, or it's like you need a slightly bigger body than Adams. If it's like a shifty slot who they then shift in for the cracks of duo, then Witherspoon can do that. So yeah, they've got real options. But great question, long answer. But yeah, it's just sounder. It's just much sounder, and I think it's going to work well. I feel, Griff, do you feel more positive about the outlook for the run defense than you did at the start?
Yeah, because before you get to personnel and players, do the on-paper answers make sense? And I feel like we can say yes right now. When last year at this time, we were going like, well, surely this isn't what they're going to do in regular season. And then what happened?
Last year, I remember that Pittsburgh game. I already referenced it, but like, I remember I was like messaging you in the DMs, like, are they trying to Jimmy and Pony this? Like, are they trying to spill this out? Because it wasn't clear what they were doing. And turns out that they were just bad, like, and they stayed bad. They weren't doing that. They were just
until the week 6 hashtag since week 6 turnaround.
And like, to repeat a point, but in week 6 they started power stepping up front and one gapping in the bear more often, but they decided not to do that in the nickel. And now what are they doing in the nickel?
Yeah.
Power stepping and one gapping more up front
Yeah.
and
So
getting the nickel involved, not the safety.
yeah. So the only
Basically doing before 2022 stuff. Not
right.
that simple, not that complicated.
Yeah. So the only
They,
lingering question I think we have right now is, are we going to see Nickel Bear at all?
yeah, that and then, can Jaron Reed get it done on his own? Who is the backup nose? And then I think they do need one more bigger guy, over 290, 300 pounds who can play on the inside. I mean, Mario Edwards has looked really good from the training camp stuff I've seen, and then Pete Carroll's comments, but that's a lot on him given he hasn't played inside for 4
Yeah.
years.
I mean, the six names, right? I think they only carry 6 right
Yeah.
now. It's Jones, Reed, Edwards, and then the second string left to right or right to left, whatever, is Morris, Cam Young, Miles Adams. So if they bring in Akeem Hicks, great. But are they going to carry 7? Who do they kick off of that? I don't see them cutting anyone from that second string, honestly.
It would
So
be
maybe
really nice to see. It would be really, really nice to see Cam Young get preseason action.
Yes.
Just to
And it
show
will
he
be
can play.
awkward. It's going to be awkward if he's better than Reed, which I don't think I don't think that's impossible. I mean,
He can
experience
strike
counts for a
guys,
lot.
and
So
the shade stuff's perfect for him.
yeah,
But essentially, this is also a way of them being slightly more dynamic up front, and particularly the way the outside backers are playing. The way that they've got the outside backers playing with that understanding, I am intrigued to see how viable that is in the long term. But that is like a cool wrinkle to their 3-4 personnel and kind of gets them into looks that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do with their outside linebackers, their lighter edge group. But the way that they're playing with them is getting them into like looks which look similar to the past. But again, that's explained in the thread.
yeah.
I'm sorry that if you're not signed up for the app, you can't see my threads. That is actually good to know, though, because I should probably just do the same stuff in an article and be like, this is an anti-Elon experiment. Anyway, that's our podcast.
All right.
So Seahawks game 2, they play the Dallas Cowboys. We expect this to be the game where the starters play the most, so be interesting to see those guys out there. JSN probably has a better connection with Geno Smith than he has with Drew Lock, along with Geno being the better quarterback. I don't know if I'll be able to go live immediately after that game because I have a playoff game that I'm coaching and I would need to sleep before that.
We
shall see.
If necessary.
We shall see. The draw of the Seahawks is strong. Thanks everyone for joining live. Great turnout. Thank you for the donation, Thanos Nix. Please do like the video, comment down below what you've enjoyed, what you think of the Seahawks. Are they going to win a playoff game? It'd be nice. Early for that though, and fun seeing all these guys get their shot, their chance to show out for the other teams as well as Seattle. Griff, anything to promote? You should follow Griff at CMike Spin Move.
Just make sure to subscribe to Matty F. Brown's Substack. Subscribe to the channel, like and subscribe. We do a lot of Overwatch Let's Plays, Twitch streams.
I don't think my Overwatch gameplay is suitable for broadcast.
It's a whole lot of, hey, what's up, gamers? Welcome to another Let's Play. Overwatch 2.
Let's play Overwatch. I've never played Overwatch 2. We should do that sometime.
We force Reinhardt when he shouldn't be out there. We're both one-trick Ryans. So, okay. Go Olympians. That's right. Yeah,
thank you, Chris. All right. Thanks, everyone. Yep, Seahawks on Tape Substack is free to subscribe. Please do. All right. Have a good one. See you guys in a bit.